Part two, and hopefully I can get this out in one. This is written on May 4th, 2014. Here we go. May the 4th be with you, 2014, sometime in the eve, well past my bedtime. Above is the universe, an undefinable, immeasurably large, and at the same time, infinitesimally small entity. It is at the same exact instant everything it could be, everything it ever was, and everything it will be. At the same time, there is a complete separate exact instant that encompasses everything that the universe could never be, everything it was, that it never was, and everything it never will be. The universe is also this separate exact moment. It is simultaneously two complete, separate, and polar opposite exact moments, while at the same time, in some yet ungraspable way, both these moments exist as a single whole, perfectly exact instant. It is, as such, a perfect image of duality that it transcends duality to be reborn as a metaverse and still yet what I will call a protoverse. It is the synergistic outcome of infinity to the power of infinity and the antergistic outcome of the root, I don't know how to say that, to be honest. I'm a bad math kind of guy. The infinite root of infinity. It is the sum total of all of its own experiences, possible experiences, and all the experiences it would be impossible for it to have. It is also none of these things. This written version of the universe is also completely right and completely wrong. The point I'm trying to make is that the universe is everything, therefore it is nothing. You can't have everything without nothing. Therefore, everything must fundamentally include nothing. And there we go down a rabbit hole to both the center and edge of the universe. The universe is so wholly separately every possible definition it could give itself, as well as every indescribable non-thing that ever existed. The universe is unlabelable. Therefore, the universe just is. This universe is my God. You are my God. I am my God. We are my God. It is my God. It is signed. It. The following day, May 5th. What makes me so sure? Well, nothing really, and that's part of the whole. Apologize for the shake. The cold flow energy is coming through me right now. But to keep with a new tradition I've just now started with myself, I'm going to try and be conscious of following a thought pattern through as much as I can while writing. Fortunately, my ferociously curious and creative side will, if left with just enough leash, keep things fresh enough to breathe. I say, nothing's making me sure, because if I was sure, I'd stop learning and defeat my purpose. If I were to venture a guess, or even better, a hypothesis based on my cumulative experience and knowledge, it would be as follows. The only thing I know is the more I look and the more I'm open to it, I see patterns. Let's use the universe as an example of itself. This is the incarnative experience. This is my experience. Going down to the microscopic, macroscopic, the universe, galaxies, galactic communities. You'll notice the arrows going smaller, going bigger, the fractal. What I'm trying to illustrate with the previous sketch is that when looking through a particular lens, the largest, Big Bang, whole universe expanding, smallest, little bang crossed out, atomic, subatomic, and on, and the controller, our own universe, our sense of self, our essence, our being, a collection of all experiences, first and second hand, and our take on such experiences, all can look the same. More and more, I see a connection between all the various personal experiences I've had. I also see so many connections between what could be called external experiences. Between the two is an all-encompassing, all-pervading connection and fundamental oneness. Hard stop. If you've gotten this far, take a break. How long you take is up to you. Worded alternatively might sound like is up to your current sense of urgency and the level of your own personal oneness. If at all possible, return with a paper, journal, recording, device. If there are any pages used, rip them out. Get a clear page and write this sentence. The sentence, I am, is the proto-verse. The word I stands for my universe. The letter I stands for my oneness or self. The word am stands for the outer universe or the collection of all verses or the one true or not my or my. The word am is I, separate but in the realm of am. The letter A is the I in the sentence, I am. The letter M is the am of the sentence, I am. From now on, the idea I have been trying to convey to the letters I and A and the word I is to be known as the number 1. This is comparable to 0 from what I know of the computer's native language. From now on, the idea I've been trying to convey to letter M and all words is to be known as 2. This is comparable to I in a computer, this is comparable to 1 in a computer's native language. Let's pretend I is a person. For the sake of my own understanding, we will say he is. In fact, he is the first direct lineage ancestor of mine to have a conscious thought. What that means to me is he was the first being within the cumulative human experience to awaken to any kind of awareness at all. If his consciousness was the first conscious instance of the universe recreating itself in the hopes of learning from itself, then similarly, I's first conscious thought would be to recreate himself in the being or entity he saw next to him. From there, he would continue to follow his predecessor or master or self or student by teaching his created self or one the 2 things he had learned so far. Here, as in infinite times both before and after this moment, an ending happens, a beginning happens, and then a third thing we'll call a possibility happens. 1. In the beginning, 1 completes his life works. 2. In the end, he starts all over again. 1 and 2. And in that magic place called the possibility, he starts. He thinks about 1, thinks about 2. Compares and contrasts 1 and 2. Shares all this with 2. Absorbs 2's own 1 and its 2 regarding its own 1. Assimilate, then go to end. To recap before I start on a never-ending loop, if there is only 1, 2, but we draw it like this, 1, 1, 1, if 1 is 2 and 2 is 1, everything then is everything, and nothing is nothing. ... If eyes and eyes, then eyes and eyes, or eyes and ones. If there is only 1, 2, then everything after is one and the many and the net and creation. As far as I know, computers can't handle paradoxes because they are simultaneously two different things. Computers are built to mimic us and make queries and connections until we find the one truth. When you ask a computer to find the one truth in a paradox, you're asking it to find itself, and it sees itself in everything it has encountered and has the capacity to remember. The closest I can get to whole right now. Sorry, hard stop. Let's try to start again here. The closest I can get to whole right now. I am both me and not me. Let's see here. I am both me, that is 1, and not me, that is 2. My purpose is to get rid of everything in the sentence except the me that is 1 and the me that is 2. When I am left with just I am. I am me when I am you. I am whole in my connection to you. Interesting how I got 8 whole pages writing this. The exact number of entries from this book that I got through before stopping. So now I'm saying it's just interesting that I got the exact same amount of pages getting this one whole concept out as all this trying that I did before. The most beautiful exists only in the moment that it becomes aware of itself. Once I know something, I am able to give myself the gift of forging the key that can open all of the no's within that first no, as well as all of the no's that exist outside of the first no. I think truth and truths is better than no, but that's just in this moment, years later. My whole life, I have been going in circles. Interestingly, scribbled something out like that. That is how it should be. My mind works in circles that create new circles each time a circle reaches its starting point. There are so many circles, not even because that is how my mind works, but rather my mind works that way because I myself am a circle. I am a circle because I am the universe. So, we fucked up. And, in fact, we've all known on the most fundamental level, and therefore we're also fundamentally incapable of ever pinpointing the absolute point that we fucked up. Some of you guessed it. Some of you knew it. Some of you haven't a clue. And lastly, but not quitely, 101, nor lastly or finally, I happen to be one of the few blessed and cursed to be all three. But I can't be 3 without 2. All 3, so another unnameable 4th. And because this disclaimer can't be either until I am one, so I happen to be one of the few blessed, cursed to be all three. But I can't be three without two. And because this disclaimer can't be either until I am one. I can't go public until I am as one as I'll ever be.
Hi, Daddy. Explain what I was doing.
Okay, honey. B. So, what I'm trying to share here is beyond words, and something that began my own fool's journey, my own hero's tale, complete with many a dark night and many a bright shiny day, but never complete in a way. This happened to me nearly 9 years ago, very nearly 9 years ago. I connected to Source and Source consciousness. Years later, I learned this to be well articulated as the law of one, being the only true law of existence, of creation, of the universe, that we are all one in many, many instances towards the purpose of knowing ourselves, learning of ourselves, exploring ourselves, as well as the creation of and expansion of what that inevitably becomes if we think of our journey of self-discovery and remembrance and healing and creating and then co-creating. We make more. I'm reading this book right now, and it talks about the, again, almost paradoxical aspect of the spirit and etheric realms being created here in the physical realm. We think of the incarnative experience of coming here from there with a map of sorts, or a plan, templates is a good word for it, archetypes that we want to play with. And it creates new, it creates more, right? And then we bring that back, and that we come from, that we extend here as, is changed by this. As above, so below. As within, so without. Everything affects everything else. And it has been difficult, because when this happened for me in 2014, I am hardly in any way saying that I am the first to anything. And this is the point, is just, there's only one. First, there's only one. Or even more, there's only zero that creates one, that creates two, that creates infinity. and the infinite. But I had the very distinct experience of this came through and I lit up and I walked and I did lots of talking and I did the chicken strut, the birdman strut around my town. And I talked to people and I loved people and it came out of me. It poured out of me in such ways that it couldn't articulate it. And the people that I came in contact with, most of them, many of them, the majority of them, these are all the same words. They weren't there. I almost want to say they weren't ready, but they were ready because they were right where they were meant to be. And what came out of that is, like I can tell stories, so many stories of what happened, but I ended up being arrested I ended up in a dog obedience school in the middle of the night where there was 2 cats by their lonesome calling to me, and I just walked up to the door and opened it, and I'm just playing with these cats, roaming around, and I'm in the office and I call an employee or someone. Is there a reason I'm in here in the middle of the night with these 2 lonesome little kitty cats? Blah, blah, blah. And they're, oh, give me a minute. And so, to make a really long story short, I end up hearing something and opening up the big security curtain at the front of the shop. And there's all sorts of police and an ambulance. And they come out. And I remember sitting in the car with this police officer. And I'm looking up at the stars and I'm like, they're there, they're here. They're there, they're here. And he says, yeah, something to that effect. It's like an alien ant farm. A police officer said this to me, and I give him this look, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it is to you, eh? Yeah. And so there I was, and I went and I got put in the hospital, and I got drug-induced psychosis, and I got stigmatized as I'm probably that it lasted too long because it was not the drugs, it was the reality of my connection with the all and the whole and the me and the you and the we. It didn't go away until I had it stomped out to just the littlest little embers, and damn did they hurt. But they're like, you're probably schizophrenic and blah 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 blah. And I spent years after that trying to find terms, find terms where I can be that here. Years of self-doubt and anguish and fear of my own self, of who I was and the experiences that I had, and this holding back and this tenseness and this they're not ready, and was it even real? And I'm blessed. I have so many, it was fucking hard, and people needed to come around. I have a lot of people in my life, family, friends that love me and have always loved me and have always been there for me, and they don't necessarily understand me, right? And I think that's something that I need to remind myself is we're not meant to fully understand each other here. The point to me of this incarnative experience is to come in with distortions, to be differently by just like degrees and degrees and degrees. And then you might meet someone that's over here and it's like a vast difference, but really it's just little degrees and degrees and degrees of what are we bringing in, what are we here to experience. And the point is, for that, like, you take these parts and I'll take these parts, and these parts can look at each other, and because of that, not all of it there. They can see it in a certain way that was impossible when we were all just it. And it's been quite such a journey, and I'd say since about 2018 or so, there's starting to be a shift, right? And I got just like so many stories that just want to burst out of me. But 2018, it began to be, you start to see a little bit more here and there. And like right when this kind of happened, after the aftermath, I was in this like deep, like clinical, almost like well, what they labeled as a psychotic depression as a result of this. And it's interesting, like, oh, you're not psychotic, but you have a psychotic depression. And I'm not going to get into that, but some of you will be able to read in between the lines of that. But I met my partner, my love, my life partner, and fuck, we've had a lot of, there's been a lot of wow through that. I've gone off and I've come back and I've found myself and I've lost myself and I've all to the effect of like as of 2020. I remember the summer of 2020 when you were there, in that like we were shut down to the point where we had the time. It was still enough that we were able to, okay, yes, and then that's like, okay, there, and you just saw it and you heard it. People fucking were there saying these things that I was locked up for, saying these things that I had to like, I don't know what to do with this because I can't find it out there anymore. And even then you go back into it, right? It's like, well, then I still, like, and that's this going out and connecting and experiencing, and then you have to bring it back in and you have to integrate it and balance it out and allow it to just be. That's what it's about, is just being who we are. And I won't get into what gets in the way of that and the whole of that aspect, because that shit's falling away now. That shit is falling away. And almost a decade ago, I found that magic in that wild freedom of being. As one dear creator, we never forget the wind blowing back our hair, right? But we're not in it. But we are. And I've spent this last 10 years finding my way back to that in various ways, throwing dirt and allowing dirt to be thrown upon that fire, to bring it back down to coals, bring it back down to embers, to blow and to wave and to urge and to will that fire to flare back up. And then sometimes that fire gets too hot and that flame gets shaky and that flame gets banked again. But what we find, we never really lose, right? And so we can always draw it out from within us. And so, yeah, that's this is the best I've ever put it. And then all the rest is just me doing me. becomes questionable sometimes whether it's worth it, but I don't know if it's necessarily about a worth. It's just about the experience and the beingness of it, all of it. Because we don't have that without the I'm just gonna So thank you if you managed to get through that with me. And I look forward to hearing your version of the only story there ever was.